What crowd? Proclamations, right, for the volleyball team. He's like, remember Lenny like the last 6 months? When he's kind of just stopped showing up to his vacation.
Okay, we have some proclamations to go out this evening. The council and acting event will join me. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first meeting of April. Happy that winter's over. I'm sure everyone is as well. I know I've said before, and many council members have said, one of the honors of this job is to recognize exemplary and folks in our community that show us what our community is really made of. And earlier this year, the girls volleyball team won the state championship, which is a feat in its own for a community to have a state championship. And it's rare that it happens. But this year, once again, Long Beach showed the state what they're made of, and our boys varsity hockey team won the state championship, and we just wanted to recognize them. So if you guys want to give them a round of applause. The amount of hours you young gentlemen put into becoming the hockey players that you are, and the team that you are, led by at least 4 coaches that I know of. It just says something about your character and something about what you're going to be able to make of yourself in this world. And it's a great accomplishment. Just to make it to the championship game is a huge accomplishment, but to come back with the trophy on behalf of the entire city, you made Long Beach very proud. So thank you guys for all your hard work. So as a small token of our appreciation, we have proclamations, and I'll call you guys up one at a time. I'll start with Daniel Bartow. Peter Botwanoff. Brian Brand. Peter Butler. Kieran Byrne. Declan Conway. Jack Dodd. Jack Gannon. Max Grant. Hunter Cronin. Ruth Judge. Ronan Judge. Joe Lieback. Patrick Meachow. Ruth McNulty. Shane Murphy. Ryan Nealon. Island. That's not so bad. Gio Panicola. Jared Pine. Ryan Pasadell. Dylan Ruthrig. Anthony Scarpello. And we just also want to recognize their coaches. The head coach, Joe Brand. Keith Casey. Vicky Chimenti. And CSCA Member of the Year, Sean O'Neill.
I'll keep this brief. Anthony touched on some of the qualities that these guys demonstrated this year and the success that they achieved because of it. It goes without saying, they're the byproduct of some wonderful parents who've grown up in this community, that live here, and are nice enough to give us the pleasure of coaching their children, the trust of coaching their children. They're wonderful boys, a great senior class that's going to graduate this year. They put on a show, a clinic for the young guys to follow, and before you know it, guys, take a word from them. It goes that quick. So congratulations. Thank you to the City of Long Beach for recognizing us. Thank you for having a nice rink in our hometown, and hopefully we'll be back here again next year to do it again.
Starting with you, just head up the dance, right? Holiday. Some of you have
Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach on Tuesday, April 7, 2019 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Bendo. Councilmember Mandel is absent. Councilmember Moore.
Here.
Vice President Diamond.
Here.
President Obama.
Here.
that the record indicates the presence of acting city manager Alvaro Stacy and assistant corporation counsel Charles Geiger. And now this is to the flag.
Mr. Geiger, would you lead us? All right, good evening, everyone, once again. And I'll just ask the acting city manager to read the city manager update.
All right, yesterday, the city's 2018 audited financials were submitted to the Federal Clearinghouse. This represents the first time in several years that the audit was submitted in a timely fashion, and the culmination of a short-term goal that I identified during my first week in this role. While no one is declaring victory by any stretch, this does represent the fulfillment of a critical first step of our plan to restore not only our finances, but our financial credibility. Because we filed in time this year, we will not need to list our audit as a material event in SEC filings, which are seen by market investors. The not-so-simple act of completing an audit on time is just a sort of gesture that demonstrates renewed commitment to financial recovery and growth. And although it's not enough by itself to move the needle, it is something that, when combined with other incremental accomplishments, start to paint a picture for credit rating agencies, investors alike. As I mentioned, there's a long way to go, but I thank our internal team and outside auditors for helping to develop forward momentum and for their focus on what really matters. Yesterday, I had the honor of joining Senator Chuck Schumer, County Supervisor Laura Gillen, and Legislator Denise Ford, among others, on the front lawn of our tax assessor Ray Flammer, who generously donated his property for the cause of NFIP flood insurance premiums. We are extremely lucky to have an advocate like Senator Schumer, who has routinely and repeatedly fought for this community's interest. Be it the boardwalk, the Army Corps project, or an issue such as this, which can easily fly under the radar, the Senator's commitment to Long Beach continues to benefit us all. With that being said, residents who participate in the NFIP should keep a close eye on this issue because FEMA's new risk calculation method may substantially increase premiums. With the weather warming, now is the perfect time to ensure potholes are filled. This year, the city launched a new initiative called Pothole Patrol, which conveys the locations of DPW repair crews throughout the city and on the city's website and Facebook page to residents on any given week. To report a pothole in your neighborhood, please download the Long Beach Response app for free on your smartphone or at LongBeachCOA.gov. The Army Corps Beach Protection Project continues. Sand replenishment work is expected to be completed by Memorial Day weekend in time for the summer beach season, and work on the new walkovers, which is expected throughout the summer, is progressing. As they work, the Army Corps will be placing dune fencing to prevent beachgoers from entering unfinished walkovers. We remind all beachgoers to please stay off the walkovers until they are completed. The 2009 street sweeping schedule is now available. To view the comprehensive street cleaning schedule, which includes every location between April and December 2019, please visit www.longbeachny.gov/publicworks. The Long Beach Scavenger Hunt is this Saturday, April 6th. Get your team together and uncover fun facts about the city by the sea by exploring shops, restaurants, and historic sites while competing for great prizes. Register today at www.thelongbeachchamber.com. The STOP program comes back to Long Beach next Sunday, April 7, 2019. In cooperation with the town of Hempstead, the city will set up a collection site behind City Hall between the hours of 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Mailers have been sent to each household in the city. For information, including a list of disposable products, please visit www.longbeachny.gov/publicworks. The City of Long Beach will hold its 58th annual Easter egg hunt on Saturday, April 13, 2019, beginning at 10 a.m. The hunt will take place on the recreation fields located on Magnolia Boulevard and the bay next to the Long Beach Ice Arena. Find more information at www.longbeachny.gov/rec. Though we are still some time away, we have started receiving questions about when this year's beach passes will go on sale. Sales will begin on May 6th at the Recreation Gazebo, located at 150 West Bay Drive across from the Ice Arena. The gazebo will be open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Last week, we capped our celebration of Women's History Month with a women and activism panel that included exceptional community leaders. Thank you to our panelists who discussed what motivated them to get active and how they overcame challenges on the road to success. Nassau County Executive Laura Curran, Robin Lynch of Waterfront Warriors, Lisa Tyson of the Long Island Progressive Coalition, Janice Gauze of the Robert E. Gauze Foundation, and Dr. Anna Powell of Long Beach Reach. And thank you, Leah Tozer of Equitable Walkers, who served as the moderator. The Long Beach Police Department has received numerous reports regarding a scam in which callers pretend to represent the department by spoofing or falsely indicating the police phone number on the caller ID. The number is 431-1800. The scammer has been demanding payment to assist with a computer virus on the victim's home computer. If you receive a call like this, it's a scam. LBPD will never call and request money, credit card, debit card numbers, etc., money orders, anything like that. We've also been made aware of a possible mailing scam. The Volunteer Firefighter Alliance is in no way associated with any fire departments in Nassau County, including Long Beach. Do not send them money or personal information. As always, if you're aware of any suspicious activity, please contact the Long Beach Police Department's non-emergency line, 431-1800.
Thank you. With that, we'll call the first item.
Okay, first item is a public hearing for bond ordinance authorizing financing for HVAC improvements for the police and fire departments located at 1 Westchester Street in the city, stating that the estimated total cost thereof is $400,000, appropriating said amount therefore, and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $400,000 bonds of said city to finance said appropriation.
Okay, I'll ask Commissioner Mirando to come on up and give us the details about this item that's been an ongoing issue for the last couple of years. Yeah.
As you know, this is nearly a 60-year-old building. 2 years ago, we had asked Carrier to come in and look at the HVAC system that takes care of the fire department and the police department. They had recommended going to a on-roof unit compressor and chiller and replacing the existing system. We then hired an engineering firm to do the engineering work to design and lay out the system. So in order to put the new system in, which Carrier had estimated about $300,000, there really was a lot of other auxiliary work that needed to be done. So the bids came in quite high, actually $637,000 for the lowest bidder without the alternates, which would have provided individual controls in the rooms. We decided not to proceed with that. Otherwise, the cost of the project would have been about $1 million. As you know, it's an old building. Some of the more expensive parts of this project turned out to be that in order to put a new system in and tie into the existing fire alarm system so that in the event of a fire in the building, the ventilators and the air conditioning system itself would shut down, not to pull the fire through the entire building, it's in excess of over $150,000. And of course, the second thing is every time we open something up around here is the asbestos word, so that added to the cost. So this overall project will demolish the existing system in its entirety, replace all the piping, ductwork, and insulation for the ductwork, the new ductwork. It'll demolish the existing electrical equipment that supplies the entire system, asbestos abatement, and we'll be installing new electrical equipment and control wiring to tie into the alarm system and to the thermostats. The new HVAC system itself will include an on-roof chiller and an on-roof compressor, which will require steel dunnage to support the unit and spread the load out across the roof. Roof repairs will need to be made after that to match the existing roof. And during the course of putting the ductwork in, we'll be replacing drop ceilings, ceiling grids, and the fire alarm system, and all that will have to be reinstalled. And in addition, we'll be replacing the ventilation system. Last year when we had this is a 30-ton unit. Last year when we brought in a temporary unit of 40 tons, there was still a lot of complaints about the humidity. Even if we added more tonnage to that 40 as recommended by the company that supplied the temporary AC, we'd still have humidity issues because the ventilation in the police department in particular is not working at all. So this will be a complete replacement. That's really the whole system in a nutshell.
Okay. When is the work expected to be completed?
Well, the biggest items is the lead time for ordering the chiller and the compressor through Carrier, which was spec'd out in the bid, and that'll determine the whole thing. The contractor has told us it will take about 8 to 10 weeks for that to take place. The contractor has been willing so far, even though he hasn't been awarded the contract, low bidder, he's already started working on shop drawings for us, just so to be prepared so that if it is awarded, we will be ahead of the game. We will work on the cooling portion of this first, which should be done by the end of June, and then they'll work through the rest of the summer to put the heating elements in.
Okay. Any other questions from the council?
Yeah, just that, I know the air conditioning system is broken. Are we just replacing the heating because it's just makes sense?
We're just making it one system, so they'll have a whole new system of HVAC for heat and cooling, yes.
Okay, it's not going to be a heat pump though, because you said separate chiller and compressor, right?
Yes. No, it's not a heat pump.
Oh, okay. And I guess I'll ask this so we don't have to come up again, because resolution 1 and 2 are sort of tied together. In resolution 2, it says that it's 637.7.
Right.
And it says funds are available in that account, H 1018 52163. That's why I got in touch with you. There's actually only 237 in that account,
Right.
which is what resolution 1's covering the difference. So I
Correct.
guess my question to you is, do we need to modify that? Because it's saying that there's 637 available in that account, which in reality there is not currently.
Are we in resolution 2 now?
Well, I combined them because they both tie together. So
I
if
see
we
your point.
approve 1, that makes up the difference in 2.
Yeah, for the sake of clarity, it's probably advisable to do what you're suggesting with respect to item 2. We just have to get through the poll.
No,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted clarity.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly, yes. That's probably the best approach.
Okay, fine.
And just as a side note, the 637,000 in the low bid does include a contingency that we may or may not use, but it does give us some room in case there's something unforeseen as we're going along. So that's built into the contract price.
Any questions or comments from the public? Yes. John, don't go far. Hi, name and address for the record.
Kathleen O'Leary, Long Beach. From my understanding, the city contacted Carrier, one company, and had one engineer do an estimate. Any homeowner knows that you get at least 3 estimates and take the middle one. I feel like the city kind of was irresponsible with the taxpayers' money. You have one engineering firm estimating $300,000, and that is $337,000 over budget. That's more than 50% over budget. I think that the city could do a better job of planning for this kind of capital improvement, which was predictable, as was the asbestos condition predictable for any building built 60 years ago. If that was a surprise to the engineer, frankly, he shouldn't be working. So what I would like to see is not borrow $400,000, but borrow what you need, which is $340,000. I can't see the point of paying interest on an extra $60,000, and these type of funds have a habit of disappearing in years. Thank you.
All right, just to correct the record here, the way it works in government is you don't take the middle bid, you take the lowest responsible bid. We're obligated to do that under General Municipal Section 103. I'm just responding to your question. With respect to the bid process, I have to tell you that was done impeccably well by the Public Works Department. Not only did we get 3 quotes, but we had a base bid and 2 alternate quotes given with respect to each one of these prospective bidders. So this was the lowest responsible bid, the base bid provided by high-tech air conditioning. So
I'm not speaking about the bid process, I'm speaking about the engineer that underestimated like more than 50% for the job, and we only put aside $300,000 because of his and Carrier's estimate. I get the bid process, but why was only one guy used?
Good. That's not correct at all. First of all, 2 years ago, the reason we went to Carrier and asked them their recommendations was because Ultimate Power was our contractor who was maintaining our systems, and when the system started to fail, they brought in Carrier. Carrier actually has built all the controls that exist in this building now, and Carrier came in and made several recommendations. As far as only picking one engineer, before we hired Cash and Associates to do the engineering work for this, we went through an RFP process where we had 5 firms submit proposals for doing the engineering behind this, and myself, the deputy commissioner, the purchasing agent, and 2 other people in City Hall reviewed those proposals and rated them, and Cash and Associates rated the best. Cash and Associates estimated after coming in and seeing everything that was in the building that the project would be about $450,000. When we met with the contractor to see why the pricing was so high, one of the big issues was the electric. When the engineers laid out the electric with their electrical people, they thought it would be about $42,000. The contractor told us that the lowest pricing he could get on the electrical work from any contractors, and seemed to bear through with the other bids, was $150,000. So I think the engineer did do their due diligence, and they were selected based on our RFP. They weren't just selected as a single engineer. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lear. Yes, Mr. Verona. Name and address for the record.
Eddie Verona. What is the estimated interest cost of the bond, and how much issuing fees will this cost the city, and how much will politically connected Harris Beach receive in legal fees as a result of this bond issuance? So can you answer us?
No, I'm not going to answer your leading questions, but with respect to the first question, was the interest rate, that's not determined at the time of sale.
But do we pay consultants to
Right now, the estimate from our financial advisors is that our debt service will run about $49,000 a year for 10 years on the site.
Okay. And issuing fees?
No.
But how many hours has this cost in legal fees to us? Do we know?
No.
Bond counsel has not been consulted then?
Bond counsel gets paid on the back end of these transactions, so we haven't incurred any legal fees to date.
Do we expect to incur any legal fees?
Every time you bond, you incur some legal fees, yes.
Well, what's the estimate then?
I can tell you when the bond call closes. Everything is known.
Okay. Well, this city is addicted to borrowing. This is the city's vice. Within the past several years, debt has doubled. Our audited financial statements that came out several days ago show that we have $177 million more debt than assets. Our debt is almost double our assets. So I ask you tonight, because of our terrible financial condition, do not borrow this money. The city cannot afford more debt. Though this bond may seem like a good idea, as the supposed savings stated in the legislative memo, we cannot continue to borrow. This borrowing will further reduce our credit rating, which has already plummeted, and burden future generations and the taxpayers of this city. We have to acknowledge our financial problems, not worsen. Don't convince yourself that this is part of the solution to our financial problems. This culture of borrowing is the root of our financial problems. So I ask you once again, please do not vote to borrow this money. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, as you have name and address for the record.
Tim Kramer, Long Beach. I was what we're doing tonight. I'm just curious, was mini split ever a consideration? Of a mini split system? You wouldn't have to deal with asbestos or ductwork or roof structure or anything of that sort. And they do make these heat pumps where they heat and cool. They do have extreme low heat. They're good to 5 below 0, which we never get to around here. Super flexible, easy to install, and it would be a fraction of that cost. So I'm just curious, is that ever a consideration?
With the number of units that would be required because of all the different rooms that we have, we'd have to have a separate unit for every single room. We have the prisoner area that has, we're under regulation to make sure that stays at a certain temperature. We have the fire phone, they have several different rooms. I think running those kind of systems, while they're very efficient for the home and for small businesses, I think for the type of units we need, I don't think they would have really worked out. We have units and running electric to all the different spots to power the units. So, although it wasn't, it was considered very quickly, but we just didn't feel it would be appropriate here.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Lester? Name and address for the record.
Roy Lester, Long Beach. Last time I was up there, I asked you some questions about this. Do I get my answers? Or do I have to wait another week?
Why don't you just use your time? You asked about this specific.
Yes, this specific, last time I was up.
I don't have the answers.
No, you don't have the answers. Before you voted on it. Okay. One of the things was that we had a quote last year. We put in a unit for $46,000 for rental. This year it was $200,000 for rental. And Ms. Diamond said after there was considerable research before we put in that other unit, and yet it didn't work. And this has been going on for years. So did the same people who did the research last time do the research for this one?
I would have to ask Commissioner Miranda to come up. And you're talking specifically about the temporary unit that we're not getting, is that correct?
You got it. You paid for it last year.
You rented it.
We rented the unit last year. When this was done in-house, we reached out to several contractors that rent units, received some pricing. We spent $50,000. We had to tie it into our electric system, and for a portion of the time we had to run it with a generator. We got understand after last year from the police department that it was still very humid in the police station, really didn't do the job. When we reached out to the contractor that did it last year, he recommended adding another 20 tons on top of that. We spoke with the engineers, mechanical engineers in Cashin, and their feeling was really the humidity wasn't a problem with the amount of tonnage. The problem was the ventilation. There was no ventilation in there, and that's part of the system that's being replaced. So as you can see, we're only putting in a 30-ton unit to handle both spots, and that'll be more efficient than a 40-ton. So that is the question.
No, that's not the question.
No.
You asked, what did we get to?
Saying if they did for research. That's what I
And I said, no, we did that in-house.
Okay.
We got prices in-house from contractors.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Gussler, can you come up? Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Jacobs from Long Beach. Am I discussing just the bond here, or item 1 and 2 at the same time?
Well, it's technically just item 1.
Okay, all right. On that item, basically looking for $400,000, right? Have we looked to find out if we could find this $400,000 tucked away somewhere else in the city's labyrinth of financing? Like, for instance, I don't know, having a couple unnecessary patron positions or so how about this $1.448 million complete waste of time that's over here taking away half of this room? How about we scratch that project and use those funds for this instead of bonding? I have more to say when we move on from here.
Thank you. Yes, anyone else? I think I saw Mr. Paganini. You need a name and address for the record?
Paganini, Long Beach. I was just thinking, could we refurbish the old system? In other words, put a unit, a new unit, the ventilation I know is a problem, but could we possibly renovate it somehow? You know, if you needed an extra room, extend the ductwork, and make it workable. I mean, it's not rotted out or anything, it's probably not updated, but could we update the old system and run it that way? It probably cost half. It's like anything else, like fixing an old car. Put a new ignition in it, put new rubber on it, and possibly get that to work. Because to put a big unit up on the roof and run all the ductwork down into these apartments now is a lot of money, a lot of labor. I'm just thinking practical, if it was my own house, or if I owned the building, fix it, put new thermostats in there, put in new ventilation vents here and there. If it's in the ceiling, you can do that. I'm just trying to be practical here, to save maybe half the money. Mr. Miranda would know, I mean, could it be possible to renovate it, and would it be, you know, cost productive? That's all I'm asking. So, all right, thank you.
I'll ask Commissioner Miranda to come up and speak to the last 2-3 years. We've been fixing this thing with duct tape and glue, trying to get it to the point where we didn't have to replace it. But unfortunately, last year it completely, I think, died.
Just the system itself was just beyond repair.
Right.
I mean, one of the other options we looked at in-house was possibly running the chilling water from the existing tower that feeds the rest of the building. But when the engineers calculated all that, there really wasn't enough tonnage to continue to feed the rest of the building and have that cooling tower feed this area, which would eliminate one part, eliminate the chiller. The compressor we really held together with Band-Aids for as long as it could go, and it had to just be replaced. So, you know, like I said, the building's 60 years old, stuff bears out.
Right.
And, you know, we really
Was
only...
it original to the building, or has it been replaced over that time?
You know, don't know, but I think it's pretty original with the police department. I'm not sure that when the police department and the fire department tied into the rest of the building here, but it seems like original equipment when you look at it.
Right, so we've exhausted every other possibility, and this is where we are now for the safety of the areas.
Yeah. And again, I'm not a mechanical engineer, I'm a civil engineer, but we did hire a very competent firm, and they were able to explain everything to us as we were going along, so we can understand what they're talking about.
Right.
But, you know, we did look at other options, so.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
And just one thing too, so nobody's left with any misinformation. You know, I keep hearing about the OEM office and being a waste. First of all, that's not money we can transfer. That's money that was specifically meant for the OEM office. And I've mentioned this at a couple of civic meetings. I think it's important to understand. When we have another emergency, another disaster, unfortunately another Irene, another Sandy, in that room with us, besides our police department, our public works, our fire department personnel, we will have representatives here from PSE&G, from National Grid, from the town of Hempstead, from Atlantic Beach, from Nassau County DPW, which means that when we need something, we're going to have people right there with the information right away, as opposed to being an island by ourselves and trying to reach out by phone and try to get resources to help. We're going to have people that are going to have to answer to us right away that, yes, we can get this done for you. And I think it'll help recovery during this another storm event or any other type of emergency. And I think that's when people will realize the real benefit of having our own OEM.
Right, and it's funded by grants, state funded.
That project is completely funded by the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, which was done through the CRP program that Mr. Bendo was a part of. We don't even have to lay the money out for that. We're not bonding anything for that. As we review the bills, we send them to GOSA, and they pay us, and we pay the contractor in 5 days. So
Thank you.
That project's not costing us.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm out of time, right?
Yes. Anyone else care to speak on the first item to bond for the air conditioning for the police and fire department? No? Seeing no hands, I close the hearing. Call the first item.
Item 1 is a bond ordinance authorizing financing for HVAC improvements for the police and fire departments located within Westchester Street in the city, stating the estimated total cost thereof is $400,000. Appropriating said amount therefore and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $400,000 bonds and said city to finance said appropriation. The hearing has been held on this item already. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into a contract for the complete removal and replacement of the police and fire department split air conditioning and heating system.
Any questions from the council? Removal of the
I
old
guess we
stuff?
have to amend it to make the financial work. So, because there's 237 available in the account, and then the other 400 will come when if the bond's approved. So we gotta make it work.
What is it moving into?
If I want, this is document, obviously.
Right.
The funds will be, but if you want to change the word just to sort of make it, if and when future tense, I think I don't see a problem with that necessarily. You know,
It says the cost is 637.
Right.
Funds are available in the account. Funds are not available in the account. 237 is available in the account.
I think it's intending adoption if I want.
Right, we just have to add something.
Presume something about the vote, so I think pending would probably be.
Funds will be available pending approval of resolution 1.
The proposed amendment. Funds will, instead of funds are available, the verbiage would be. Funds will be available pending the approval by one. I just did it. But it's up to you, it's your
Can
amendment.
we say item 1, is that clear enough, or I gotta say? That'll work? Okay, so then I'll propose to amend the resolution to say, make the last line, funds will be available in account H1018-52163, pending passage of resolution item 1.
A second.
Bond ordinance.
Voting on the amendment, Councilmember Benda.
Yes.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes.
Vice President Dyer.
Yes.
President Romano.
Yes. Okay, anything else from the council on item number 2? Anyone from the public on the removal of the AC? Yes, Mr. Gusto? Name and address for the record.
Sure, good evening, Jay Goss, Long Beach. So, last January 13th, this council passed a resolution for $46,000 to change to rent a temporary AC unit to get us through last summer. Did we look into the cost associated with buying that piece of equipment that we rent? That's its own discrete issue. You can answer me whenever. There was also a resolution on 9/4/18 to enter into a design engineering services for this AC system with Cass and Associates, and I looked today and I don't see an amount fixed as a part of the proceedings on this matter. Do we know what the cost of the engineering services was?
I'm guessing when you're done, I'll call up Commissioner Miranda.
I can speak to the first question. With respect to the first problem, no, we did not buy new because we seemed to be insufficient last year.
All right, so, and did I take it then the second part that we don't know how much the engineering services would cost?
That's correct from my standpoint.
Okay. And is this cost seems very excessive to me. And again, I'm looking at the totality of the cost of the rental units and the cost of the engineering services, albeit unknown at this point. And it seems to me like we're way out of line on this. Is one of the reasons for this cost due to Public Works prevailing wage requirements? And I heard Commissioner Moreno mention asbestos as also being a factor driving the cost up. Have we not taken any steps to remediate this asbestos before now? It's a 50-year-old building. If there's still asbestos in here, somebody's exposing their workers to dangerous conditions unnecessarily for a very long time.
Asbestos, yeah, I mean, I'll let Commissioner Moreno answer that question, but asbestos doesn't become a danger until it's necessarily disturbed, which it's about to be. But by all means, Commissioner, why don't you take that one?
You want to finish your questions? Because he's not stopping the clock.
The system will also cover portions of buildings occupied by the New York State Unified Court Systems offices. Has the city tried to get any of this money out of the state for that portion of the building that's utilized by the court system? Also, Commissioner Moreno mentioned that the contractor on the job has already started shop drawings. Is that not what we paid the engineering firm for? And has the city used high-tech before, and what is its experience? Mr. Miranda also mentioned Cash and Associates was rated the best of the bids received for the engineering services. Were they a little bit? And you mentioned during the bond item, $49,000 a year for 10 years is going to be the city's cost. Does that mean that this $400,000 we're borrowing will cost us $490 going out over 10 years? 49,000 a year for 10 years, 490. So the 400,000 we're borrowing today is ultimately we're going to pay back 490 in total for it over 10 years.
It's a very rough projection.
Okay, those are my questions.
Commissioner Moreno, you want to start with the asbestos?
Yeah, I think the acting city manager hit the first part of it. We manage the asbestos in the building. As long as it's not friable, we have had several tests done when it's been brought to our attention somebody feels that there's asbestos dust or anything. All that testing has shown to be negative. Again, other than that, we're going to disturb this. That's why, saying up here when we did this project up here, there was asbestos removal, and it's done in an incorrect manner.
Court system?
The court system, I don't believe the system feeds the court system. And in terms of the engineering cost, when we do an RFP with an engineering firm, because it's not a bid service, it's a professional service, most places would not go through the tremendous amount of work it takes to put an RFP together and review it for engineering services. They would go to an engineering firm that they know has the experience in certain areas and hire them. When we get the RFPs from the engineering firms, we get the cost proposals under separate cover. After we rate the proposals, we take the best proposal and we open their cost proposal. We do not look at the other cost proposals. Unless we feel that the cost proposal is way out of line, we don't, start looking for the second best or anything like that. And the engineering cost, as far as shop drawings, no, the engineers do not do shop drawings. Shop drawings are supplied by the contractor. The engineering firm reviews the shop drawings to make sure that they're in compliance with the plans and specifications that have been put out to bid, to make sure that the construction gets done correctly. That engineering service fees also include inspection on site, periodic inspection, to make sure that the system is being installed according to those shop drawings and according to the specifications and plans. So I think that was all the questions, right?
That is, thank you. Anyone else have any comments or questions about item number 2? Seeing no hands, next item.
Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into a contract for the replacement and installation of a pump at well number 16 at the water purification plant and to transfer funds.
You should stand up here tonight. Well, 16.
Okay. Sometime a year ago, we started to lose capacity at well 16. So several things. Well 16 is located on the water treatment property next to the groundwater storage tank on Park Place. When you start to lose capacity in a well, there can be several reasons. The well screen could be becoming clogged, the pump could be becoming worn. There's several different things that can go on. The well casing is drilled about 1,350 feet into the ground. The well pump is placed in, and the well is screened from about 1,200 to 1,260 feet to take water in from the void. The well pump is placed about 100 feet deep into the well. So when we started losing capacity, we hired Lane to pull the pump, to take a look and TV the well to see if we had issues with the screen. We did have some minor flaking issues with the screen. We had them flush the well out. We had them bail it to take any sediment that might be in the well, reducing the capacity, and then we also had the pump examined. The pump at that well station is a vertical drive pump, has 100 feet of shaft and an above ground motor. We decided that there was two issues with the well. One was pump capacity, one was also the well screen capacity. So we decided to put back in a submersible pump. This is a pump where you don't need a shaft and the motor is actually on the pump in the well. And that gives us some advantage in the next time we have a major storm. If we do get any flooding in the building, the pump can keep running, so we keep having water supply. In order to do that, we needed to submit plans and specifications to the Nassau County Health Department and get their approval. We did that. We went out to bid. There's really only two major drilling companies on Long Island that handle wells of this size, and that's Lane, who are located in Hop, and also AC Schultes, who are located in New Jersey. Since Lane had done all the initial work, I guess AC decided not to bid on this one, so we only received one bid. We did review the bid, and we find it's in order.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing no hands, next item.
Item 4 has been taken off the calendar. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into agreements with the operation of food trucks at the city's Riverside Food Market Shortest.
So we're about ready to award our shortest board bids for 2019. I'm happy to report that the total fees collected will be going up from $75,892 to $96,000. The individual rents were $5,837 per summer, and now they're going up to $6,000 plus an additional $2,000 fee for incidentals like water and utilities, a total of $8,000 per rental. And you can see the rest of the item, the language of the item itself, what we're awarding.
Any questions from the council?
It says in here that this covers the dates of the summer season. What are we defining the summer season as for trucks? Will it match the beach season?
Yes, correct.
Okay. The fees from the vendors total $96,000, but that includes the electricity, everything, all the utilities, the cleaning, and we also, I guess, we take their waste oil and wastewater. What does all that cost the city each year?
Well, some of it is admittedly difficult to estimate, which is why we came up with this uniform fee. Hang on one second. Let's see. Like the wastewater tanks and disposal, that goes $9,875 for the season, or $1975 a month. So that's quantifiable. Water usage, we don't meter in that area, so there's really no way to tell ultimately. So that's why we're trying to come up with a fee that we believe is it's a rough estimate, but we believe it's fair and it works. We have some lubrication costs that are built in and maintenance of the shortest boy area as well. No, sanitation is not necessarily included, but when cleaning and whatnot, the rest of everything costs for 10 weeks in total was $3,500 for our paper and whatnot. In total, our anticipated costs, I should mention, are $17,998. So we anticipate a profit of approximately $78,000.
Okay. The agreement this time is for 3 years. Why did we jump to 3 years?
Because we found ourselves repeating this process every year for the exact same vendors, and it was just more efficient to do it this way.
So we also have in there a lot of the two-year renewals, which actually would make this a second-year agreement if we did that. Does the rent increase at all over this 7-year period?
Well, whenever you have an extension under like that, that's when the rent gets negotiated. So this is the rent for each of the 3 years.
Okay.
So there's no rent beyond that initial 3-year period.
And then after 3 years,
It winds up renegotiated.
okay. And then who would, because it says it's at the city's discretion, who would approve that? Is that the city manager? Is that the council? Who approves it?
Typically the city manager, when you see city.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from the council? Local businesses coming back, that's good. Any questions or comments from the public about the shortest board? Yes, Ms. Moore? Name and address for the record.
Amanda Moore, West End. On behalf of the Environmental Advisory Committee that I serve on, and Surfrider, the environmental organization I volunteer for, we've always seen the shortest board as a place to possibly implement more leadership in environmental practices, reducing plastics, reducing waste. I've been to food truck courts and other places in the country that are virtually waste-free. And that also speaks to the economics of it, because we're obviously carting away waste kind of for free for those businesses. And if we at least increase the recycling, which we've discussed before, and we got some of that out of the waste stream, then we can make it cheaper to run the food truck. So I hope you guys will try to implement those ideas. Probably too late into these leases, but maybe it's a roundtable discussion with the businesses at some point, even on a private level, which I would be happy to be involved in.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Ms. McGinnis. Name and address for the record.
Karen McGinnis, 102 Pennsylvania Avenue. What is the minimum commercial liability insurance each business needs to have in order to enter a contract with the city?
It varies. I don't have that information for this one with me, but they are required as part of the lease to maintain that.
Shouldn't we be setting a minimum threshold?
It's difficult because it always depends on the type of enterprise that they're running.
Right.
So we're reluctant that to use one-size-fits-all approach for these things.
In order to protect the city, wouldn't it be wise to consider a minimum commercial liability threshold?
Potentially. It's worth exploring, yeah.
Since our costs are going up each year, shouldn't we consider making this an annual, keeping it as an annual process? Because as we should not knock ourselves out for getting more revenue next year.
I understand, but there's always a sort of a delicate balance that goes into this process,
Right.
and this is taking up an inordinate amount of time for purchasing the issue. And we're trying to streamline the process for her more than anyone, because this, again, a lot of effort goes into this particular procurement process, dealing with all these vendors.
Especially as small businesses, I'm concerned that they may go out of business from year to year, and that's why I feel that they're puts the city at risk.
We've had that happen before, and we've actually opened it up subsequent to these initial resolutions. We've done that several years where we've added several trucks.
So is it safe to assume that the city council, if they want to see the contracts, they can see the individual contracts for each of these
Of course,
vendors?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Just for point of record, we have seen them in the past.
I think it's also good for the small business to know that they're investing in a business, that they have a contract for 3 years, so that they can count on that as they make an investment to improve the area. Anyone else? Something else?
Yeah, hi, Jay Gus, in Long Beach. I may have been out in the restroom and something like that, just sort of, do we lose money on this? Do we know?
We're going to make approximately $78,000.
I'm sorry, so we actually, we're in the
Thank you. Anyone else? Food truck? Lester?
Roy Lester, Long Beach. Is there any accounting that these businesses have to give the city as to what they're making, what's their costs and everything?
No.
Is that the same as all the vendors at the beach?
From what I know, yes. I can't think of a single lease where we require that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the showbiz board? Seeing no hands, next item.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager and the deputy city controller to transfer funds within the 2018-19 budget.
This is our typical year-end roundup that allows the comptroller to simply take your, in anticipation of closing out the books for fiscal year 2018-2019 to take funds from accounts that are fully funded or at least partially funded and move them over to accounts that are run. It's something that's performant and we've done every single year.
Okay. Any questions from the council? No. Any questions from the public? Mr. Morano?
Hello, Eddie Verna. The resolution reads, it has been determined that there are unexpected funds in various accounts and other accounts that require funds to be transferred to them for the remainder of the 2018-2019 fiscal year. What is this referring to? What funds specifically is this resolution referring to?
It's a generic reference.
So there is no specific funds in mind?
No, this is what allows the controller to go literally line by line to figure out where you might have surplus and move it over to someplace where there might be deficit.
Well, I think that this seems pretty shady on the city's part, and that the city's trying to hide fund transfers, as we've seen several times this year. I know for water chemicals and a variety of other fund transfers that they have just been approved via resolution. I think that's transparent. I think that keeps the residents in the know, and that so the city is not covering up things and moving money around. And I think, especially at this time of record low trust in the city and record low transparency, that even if you're going to do this, I think that there should be an amendment to make sure that all funds are at least publicly posted. Even if it's right over there, I think just keeping the citizens in the know is an important thing, and that the city should be committing to transparency, to accountability, and that includes on our budget. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. McGinnis?
Karen McGinnis, 102 Pennsylvania. I, along with Eddie, agree that in terms of regaining the trust of the citizens, even though this is a housekeeping matter in terms of accounting, this specifically relates to the city council members' ability to perform their fiduciary responsibility to the residents. They have to make sure they understand what's going on. I don't feel that everybody does understand what's going on. Just voting yes to do this is not transparent on principle alone. I don't even know if the city council members received the audit financials that you posted on the website.
They literally just got posted.
But it was dated March 28th. Have the city council members been emailed or handed those financials?
No, we literally just posted them at the end of the day yesterday.
So
we
basically,
haven't had a chance to make copies yet.
I just want to know that I actually gave financials to a city council member before the acting city manager did or the acting controller did. Why is that? That's a lack of transparency.
Mr. McGinnis, in an abundance of transparency, we posted this on the website as soon as it was published.
Right, and so in abundance of concern, I sent it to a city council member because I don't have the confidence in the administration sending it to my city council members.
Thank you. And I should also mention that the city council was apprised that this would be filed on time last week.
Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
John Mead, Arizona Avenue, Long Beach. I believe the city manager indicated that this is a common practice every year.
Since the city's inception, I believe.
Okay.
And across pretty much every
Can we
organization
get,
across the country.
can we
yes.
get the last 5 years an audit that shows what money was always short in what funds and what money always seemed to have excess and that was transferred, so that we can see whether or not there's a historic pattern of underfunding and overfunding that may actually create this illusion that maybe it's unfortunate on your part. Maybe we're not budgeting properly, if we always have more over here and less over there, or you know, why don't we adopt zero-based budgeting? Every department must defend every penny they have. And if they overspend, they have to explain why or they don't get it. And if they underspend, also, how come you're not spending it? And maybe we're giving you too much. We need to be managers of the money. And every year shuffling the deck to make it come out even, that's not managing money.
I couldn't agree with you more, actually.
Then why are we doing it every year?
Doing what, this item?
Yeah, this shuffle.
Well, this is what allows the surplus and the deficits to reconcile with one another. However, in terms of managing money, what you just mentioned, what I would say to you is stay tuned for the council meeting next week. Because you'll be learning a lot more about my plans in that regard.
Well, I just, you know, from what I've been in the MBA, I've got some other things I've worked on in the budget department where I work, and I can tell you clearly, you need to have clear reporting every month on what's up and what's down, and if it's not on track, why isn't it on track?
I agree.
And you cut their budget halfway through the year on a thing. This place is being underspent. We're knocking the money. Put that in the rainy day account. And if they're overspending, let them explain it, and they've got to have some good explanations.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Yes, Commissioner Miranda.
I'm sorry, I just have to make a comment about this resolution. I've been fortunate enough to work for other municipalities, and this is common practice in municipal government, so that you can smoothly run your operation at the end of the year. As an example, this was a very mild winter in terms of snow plowing, so we have an excess of money in our snow plowing budget. But we may have experienced some emergencies on the beach that we weren't expecting, and this allows us to continue to smoothly operate to get to the beginning of next budget year. This is not some, people want to come up here and try to purport that we're trying to, hide things or pulling over on the public. That's not what this is about. This is about being able to smoothly operate for the rest of this budget year. And I just wanted to point out, I've been with four municipalities. This is the way the municipal government works, and it's how municipalities keep their work moving smoothly.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments from the public?
I'd like to respond to
Mrs. Blanchett? I'm sorry, Mr. Dean.
Open data. Yeah, I'll just echo the last couple of comments. I don't think the issue is really focusing in on trying to hide money. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is we've come to a place right now where there are many people who are residents here who have lost faith in this particular system. And I think that if we're going to be transparent and if we're going to regain the trust of those who live here and those people that we serve, then it might be, I believe it might be interesting that we would finally step up and just show people and make the information available. I don't think it's going to hurt us in any way to do that because, again, this is a customary practice. I totally agree with what was said in terms of what Commissioner is saying, that this is standard. We've been doing this for several years, and I know that even here, many of us
have been a part of approving this resolution. But it's unfortunate that we've come to a place now, in light of everything that's happening, people are reading stories about our financial health, our fiscal health, and now people have the right to question where is money going, which columns, and what's happening. And so I think, in light of that, I think that we could amend this particular resolution, that the report would, one, be shared with the council, but then it would also become made public on the website. And I think that would be, once again, our statement to the public that we are serious about what we're doing, and that we do want to move forward, so that this cloud could just really, at some point, disappear. And I think everyone on the council is committed to doing that, and this could be a first step. So I'll just make a resolution, I'll just put something on the floor, and people can respond in any way, but at the end of that resolution, it could just simply state that the report would be made public and shared on the city's website. And then that would, for the most part, I think, answer a lot of questions, and then hopefully we can move forward. I believe our city manager, our acting city manager, will share some other information with us at our next meeting. But until that happens, we can take some action this evening.
So with I don't know that a report is actually written on the transfers. Do we have to request a report be made and then posted, or just by saying a report would automatically cover?
You know, it's difficult to say without our accounting consultant here how the best way to frame this. I'm sure there's a way to memorialize it. I just don't pretend to know what the best way is.
So create a report of what transfers were made and make it available to the public.
Yes, so generate a report and make the report available to the public.
Specifically of the transfers.
Yes.
So I don't have an issue with it as long as, but I do think just so that we have, because we have the auditors, we have the consultants, we have the acting controller, just to make sure that we can comply with the actual resolution, that we say that it's within either 60 days of completing the actual transfers, just so that we're not like, it's not multiple different exams. Once the books are completed, that those transfers are made public. Yeah, or within 30 days of the end of the fiscal year, then, or 60 days or some. So I don't have any.
I agree with timing. No.
I think that if we can amend it, I think Councilwoman Moore, you have to offer to complete it. I'm not sure I can amend an amendment.
But yeah, no, I would have to. Well, actually, we can, because I didn't have a second on that motion, so it's still open. I'm just trying to scribble what we said. Generate a report.
I think it makes sense to say at the closing of the books.
Within 60 days.
Yeah,
Or
maybe
45
give us a little margin of error. I think go maybe at least 30 days.
So what I do is to delineate that, not so like as it happens, when it's all done.
Oh, yeah, no, I understand.
Why don't we say 60 days from the conclusion of the fiscal year? Right? The fiscal year ends. Or 45 days. I don't have an issue with that.
Look, you know, oh no, I was just going to say my obligation up here is to try and ensure that our resources are strained to the least extent possible. So I would appreciate more time. I know I can speak on behalf of our accounting consultant when I say that she would definitely appreciate more time, especially, what makes it especially difficult is trying to formulate this new process right in the middle of the budget cycle in May. So if there's a way to do it, you know, fairly soon after fiscal year closes, internally we'd appreciate it.
I think that 45 days from the conclusion of the fiscal year is fair.
Hold on, we're going to go into the budget process where we present a new budget to the public. And we don't, again, the whole point was to remove the cloud, so we want to be able to open up the conversation because we, at that time, be confident about our budget.
Regular transfers won't arguably take place until after the new budget is already passed, so.
That's going to be an issue. Those transfers can go on really throughout June.
Right, so which is why I think it would have to be
within that amount of time.
But again, and then that comes back to us, then as a council, how can we approve a future budget if we're not sure where these monies are going at the end of the budget season? Because we want to make good decisions about the future budget.
I don't disagree with you. I think that we want, wait, hold on. I think that we all want that information. I think some of that, when we each have our meetings with the consultants, when we go through our budget, which we've done in the last, at least the 2 years that I've been here, I think those are questions that we can ask, and then during the hearings, we can talk about those accounts that we, or lines in the budget that were not sufficiently funded for whatever reason, whether it's a light snow year and there's too much, or personnel, or whatever the issue is. I just don't know that we can tax the resources with creating a report before these transfers have actually taken place. It would be very, I agree that it would be great to have that information before we pass the budget, but some of those things might need to take place after we pass the budget.
Right. But the resolution, right, exactly. No, I agree with the 60 days, because, as the resolution currently reads, it's just for the remainder of the 2018-2019 fiscal year. So what we're saying is, when that money is moved, that we want a report, and we want that report to be shared with the public.
Correct. I agree.
So I think the amendment now states that, the section in charter of the City of Long Beach, that we will indeed generate a report within 60 days, and that report will be shared with the public.
The report shall be made within 60 days of the public and shared on the website.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Entries happen after that, even after 60 days. They can happen after 6 months, after a fiscal year entries. Online.
But we still need a report.
Right, but you can't, it's not fair to the auditors or the accountant, rather, to have it up to 60 days after the end of the fiscal year. If they haven't finished the audit, which has adjustments in it.
We could get the report of what was already transferred, I guess.
Right, we're getting, right, the report is what was there.
Otherwise, if it goes on forever, then you don't get a report.
That's why you don't get all the financials for 9 months.
Okay, so,
Open data, online checkbook.
I totally agree with that, but I just want to make sure that something happens right now in terms of guaranteeing that this information is public. We have to make sure that happens.
And once we coordinate with our financial team, there's nothing to prevent us from revisiting any of the logistics that is proposed in this item also, if we need to.
Okay, so we're generating a report.
Can I make one comment, please?
Okay, we're generating a report of all transfers, so we're not putting a time record on it in a timely manner. Okay, so the resolution remains on the floor then, and it was seconded, so.
Yeah, read it, so he needs to write a report.
Yeah, I think it was very good. All right, so how is actually related?
I'll let Councilwoman Moore communicate.
Sure.
All right, so we initially said that we were going to generate a report. We said that was within 60 days of the closing of the fiscal year, and that this information would be shared with the public and posted on the city's website.
Okay, can you just read that back and ask for a second, but once you recorded it?
So that was the original motion, and actually Councilwoman Dunn seconded that.
Actually, it's part of
But we never went for a vote because then we would have to then.
Well, just to clarify what's being seconded, I just want to be able to read back.
Before a second, I just want to know if Councilman Bendo had anything to the amendment.
I mean, we're defining, we're saying a report, I guess we're not defining what that report is.
Well, that's what I was saying, of the transfers.
Yeah.
So if I
I have this right here at the end. And further resolved to generate a report within 60 days of the closing of the fiscal year and to post a report on the city's website.
Of the transit funds.
Okay, so we could be specific at the end, I don't have a problem, we could add that, language towards the end. Right, general report. Reflecting the transfers for the remainder of the 2018-2019 fiscal year.
Excuse me, do you realize that this is important information for actually making the budget for next year? So that you put the money in the right spot at the start of the year and at the end of the year?
One more time.
Yeah.
And be it further resolved that we generate a report within 60 days of the closing of the fiscal year and post the report on the city's website reflecting the transfers for the remainder of the 2018-19 fiscal year.
So, now, do we want to add?
Sorry, it says, we said remaining, but this is going to be done after the end of the fiscal year, so.
It would be for, this whole item is just for the 2018-19. This purpose
I'm just thinking of the wording, so the report would have to be transfers that took place. From the passage of this resolution to the end of the fiscal year.
Right, I'll hear it for the meeting.
Did we include that?
But that was explanatory. That was
I'll second this again.
Okay, we're going to do that.
Yes.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd.
Yes.
President Morales.
Yes. Any other questions or comments on the item as amended? Ms. Bolasevich?
Therefor, Long Beach. I'm not an accountant, trust me, my husband doesn't even let me touch the checkbook. But, with that said, wouldn't it be smart in organizations that I've had before, to start with the budget, and then, I'm not saying every month, but every other month, you put what each line, what has been spent from each line, and then the people know all year, and you don't have to worry about this come the end. All you have to say is, we had no snow removal, so we're moving that line to line 26. I mean, it's just a very open way of doing it. Every other month, you put, water department, whatever their budget is. Okay, they have 180,000. They spent 90,000. Okay, and if you do that every other month, everybody is right on the page with you. And there can be no doubt, no questions, no somebody's doing something sneaky, and it's just open. I think that's like a honest way of showing everybody, yeah, this is what's been spent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Guinness, but the rules dictate you already spoke, so. It was on this item. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's a violation of the rules.
It's an amendment. I'm talking about the amendment. I would just ask that you please table this and talk to the financial consultant before you vote on it.
Thank you. Mr. Delory. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
I had no intention of speaking to this item, but very simply, having gone through this myself, it's a simple process. Process is my recommendation, of course. That Mr. Bendo said there was $237,000 in the account. At that point, when you know you need to expend $637,000, you propose a budget adjustment. The resolution shared by the council and adopted, you recommended H account, whatever the account. But this is a procedure that should be done throughout the year. I'm assuming now that you've all sharing year-to-date numbers. I imagine because you had mentioned there's 237,000 that it showed a shortfall in order to borrow to meet the 637,000. So, you're going through budget season now, I imagine, and there are accounts that you're over, there's accounts that you're under, in all different funds. You have your general fund, your water fund, whatever. You make those one-time adjustments, moving funds around. And I think it's $1,500 or higher that the city manager, has it. But it's a one-time adjustment, which I don't believe you need to. Had it been done in advance, had you had a city controller, or somebody was looking at this data, it would have been done one shot. And that's all my recommendation. I had no intention of speaking about this, but I've done it, so that's all my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. As the Commissioner spoke, though, this does happen every year at the end of the year as we close our books. Mr. Barone, you have already spoken as well. Is there anyone else that cares? Anyone else cares to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing no hands.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance to amend code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach regarding intentional release of balloons. This item is for publication only. The hearing will be held April 16th at 7 p.m. Item 8 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance authorizing financing for the cost of fiscal year 2018-19 separation payments. 2 or for the benefit of employees of the city upon separation from employment, stating the estimated total cost thereof is $400,000, appropriating said amount therefore, and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $400,000 bonds of said city to finance said appropriation. This item is for publication only, and the hearing will be held April 16th at 7 p.m. Now we're going on to the voting portion. So item 1 is a bond ordinance authorizing financing for HVAC improvements for the police and fire departments located at 1 West Chester Street in the city, stating the estimated total cost thereof is $400,000, appropriating said amount therefore, and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $400,000 bonds of said city to finance said appropriation.
I will.
Anyone that knows me knows my sentiments on borrowing money, but the simple fact is the HVAC system in this building is just shot. It can't be fixed anymore. They look for change in the couch cushions to come up with as much as they could. This is to borrow to do something we basically have to do. So I vote yes.
Yes, obviously I feel the same way about this particular issue. However, once again, in looking at the information and also having conversation with our commissioner, I felt it was very important for us to at this time move forward because in the end will benefit with respect to the savings instead of us continuing to find ways to patch something up. I just felt it was better for us to do that. And in the end, although this is a very difficult decision to make because of the issue of spending money, I felt that this would be the best way to do it at this time and to also restore the dignity of people who are working in the area. Because for the past 2 years, there's been some serious issues in terms of the ventilation system. But then I vote yes.
I don't think that any of us here want to continue to borrow, but there are certain expenses that come up that require that. We can't expect our first responders in particular, as well as those who find themselves in the police department, to endure another summer of inadequate ventilation and cooling. And I think that this, in the long run, the temporary fixes were tremendously expensive and inadequate, as it turned out. So with that, I vote yes.
Yes.
2 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into a contract for the complete removal and replacement of the police and fire department's split air conditioning and heating system. Introduce with the adoption of this item as amended.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bennett.
Yes.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes.
Vice President Dyer.
Yes.
President Romano.
Yes.
Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into a contract for the replacement and installation of a pump at well number 16 at the water purification plant and to transfer funds. Introduce with the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bennett.
Yes.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes.
Vice President Dyer.
Yes.
President Romano.
I'd just like to thank the Commissioner Miranda for all his work on this and making sure we have safe drinking water. I vote yes.
Okay. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager to enter into agreements for the operation of food trucks at the city's Riverside Food Mart. Introduce with the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second. Voting, Councilmember Bennett.
Well, I love the smorgasbord. I have a problem here locking us in for 7 years. I'd be okay with 3, but the 2 extensions, after that I have to vote no.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes.
Vice President Dyer.
I'm looking forward to another great summer at the smorgasbord. With that, I vote yes.
President Romano.
I'd just like to thank Ms. Moore for your suggestions. Make sure we have some recycling bins there. I know they've been lacking in the past at the shortest board. And hopefully look to the future to using compostable materials and maybe changing it up there a little bit. I think it's a great idea, and it's probably too late for this, but maybe we could do something with with Ryan and the business owners there. As long as it's collectively done, that would be great. I vote yes.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the acting city manager and deputy city controller to transfer funds within the 2018-19 budget. Introduce with the adoption of this item as amended.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bennett.
This is a tough one because I voted no on this last year. As anyone knows, the 15 months I've been on the council, one of my gripes is the ability to get information. And voting yes for this would essentially be voting for me to not get more information until after something is done, if at all. So even with this report, I still wouldn't know what's going on until after the fact. So I have to vote no.
Councilmember Moore.
I'm not understanding the decision that was just made, being that there could have been amendments to the resolution, because we should have spoken to the resolution itself for the reason or rationale for voting, but I'm going to vote yes.
Vice President Dyer.
Yes.
President Romano.
Yes.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of ordinance to amend the code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach regarding intentional release of balloons. Introduce with the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Bennett.
Yes.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes.
Vice President Dyer.
Yes.
President Romano.
Yes.
And finally, item 8 is a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance authorizing financing for the cost of fiscal year 2018-2019 separation payments to or for the benefit of employees of the city upon separation from employment, stating an estimated total cost thereof is $400,000, appropriating said amount therefore, and authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $400,000 bonds of said city to finance said appropriation. Move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
So just in keeping with the theme of difficulty getting information, I just want to make it public that what my expectations are going to be to consider this vote, and that'll be, this is a vote to cover separation payments that were above what was budgeted and anticipated. I want to see a list of what those additional retirements were that weren't accounted for in the previous budget, payout calculation sheets for those payouts, including who approved the amounts, and then a copy of any contracts or agreements that define those payout calculations, or if there's no agreement in place, which formula. So I just want that out there. That's my expectation. And with that, then I'll vote yes.
Councilmember Moore.
Yes.
Vice
Yes.
President Arnold.
Yes.
City manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the city clerk. Will make a motion to close the meeting.
I will. I will.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
All right, now we enter our good and welfare portion for this evening. As everyone knows, it's 3 minutes of uninterrupted time. I'd ask you that you finish your commenting, and if we can answer your questions, we will at the end of your comments. I think Acting City Manager has a few
Just two brief ones.
brief questions.
Yeah, a resident asked last week about the burglaries, and the Recreation Center has 3 of them. One is in the main office, which can be used for the pool, gym, and the locker rooms, and there's in the ice arena, in the office area, and the last is a mobile unit, which can be used for the fields. Another question asked about repainting, that specifically on Lincoln Boulevard, if I recall. That process will begin after the repaving process is completed, increasing potholes and what have you.
All right, first up, Brendan Healy. Good evening.
Good evening. Quality of life, West End, Brendan Healy, Long Beach, for the record. So we're following from the quality of life in the West End. As everyone knows, the summer is right around the corner. We're very excited for it. And just to let the city know and the residents know, the West End neighbors will be sending a letter to all licensed bars and restaurants in the West End, asking them to review their operations, take a look at how they operate, soundproofing, noise ordinances, all of that, right? So that's going out this week. We will send a letter to the council so you have a copy of that as well. We're actually asking the city to take a zero tolerance policy this year. I mean, this is the time. When there are noise complaints from the residents, we're asking the city to make direct referrals to the state liquor authority and let them sort out the issue with the licensed establishment. What's happening today is a game of whack-a-mole where residents will, residents will call up, file a complaint, the noise maybe turns down, it goes back up an hour later, and this repeats over and over and over again. So it's not just fair to the residents, but it's also not fair to the licensed establishments that have worked with the West End neighbors to enter into agreements with us to make sure that their bars and restaurants meet the proper soundproofing, have the right requirements, and they spent money. A good example of this is Castaway. So Tim Del Rosso just opened up Castaway in the West End, spent a lot of money on soundproofing. And he, you know, I'm not speaking for him, but I can imagine a bar in his situation would be frustrated that if a bar near him did not spend the same amount of money and is constantly creating an issue for the residents every night, that they're not being held to the same standard. So to get ahead of this, we are asking the city about the zero tolerance policy. That also needs being proactive as well. I know the commissioner goes out and meets with the bars every summer. He has a bit of a meeting and talks with them about expectations. We're asking that this summer be a different summer. That zero tolerance is enforced, that SLA referrals are directly submitted the following week of the complaint, and that the police department take appropriate action. So that's what we're calling for. We will be sending a letter to the bars. And again, for the record, we have now 8 bars in the West End that have entered into agreements with the West End neighbors, and those stipulations are directly filed with the SLA, which gives us some enforceability in terms of their conduct and requirements. So that's what we're looking for this year. We're asking for the city's help, and we're asking to help the property owners achieve some peace and quiet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Being Long Beach. Well, we're waiting for the Nassau County study to be done, which won't be done until the summer, and then by the time we get the report, like, who knows when. I want to just remind you that we were informed by Denise Ford that we can put signs up. And I noticed that there was a new sign put on the corner of New York and West Park going eastbound, which says stop on red here, so can't put signs up. I also did a study of all the intersections in Long Beach. Long Beach is a residential community, as I said before. I believe the city council is here to represent the residents of Long Beach, their constituency, not the people that happen to drive through here. Quickly, I'll just say, I'm Anderson, excluding the canals that you need, I got a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit, traffic everywhere, and they have appropriate signs, stop signs for that traffic. But there's approximately 369 intersections. 361 of those intersections, there's four-way or directional control where the traffic is, and sometimes you have over streets, right? The 8 intersections that do not have all-way traffic control: Pennsylvania Avenue in West Park, Arizona Avenue in West Park, Wyoming Avenue in West Park, Virginia Avenue in West Park, Tennessee in West Park, Minnesota in West Park, Georgia in West Park, Illinois in West Park. There was 25 years ago, we didn't have a light on Nevada, but somehow that got there. There's no reason why we can't get a light on these other streets. And if you can't get a light, you can put a stop sign up there. Very recently, you had utility work there that was stopping traffic all both ways, and there was no real bad problem there. So I don't believe that intermixing stop signs and traffic lights is a real problem. And I have tried to study this thing. I went to the traffic department. I haven't found anything that conclusively says you cannot put stop signs and traffic lights in the same place. And in the newer stop signs, please put up do not block intersection and yield to pedestrians. New York State laws, but nothing is being done. Please represent the people. There's an election here. This is a topic.
Mr. Lester.
Roy Lester, Long Beach. First of all, Mr. Lama, there is no defibrillator in the pool. That's what I said last week. There's still no defibrillator in the pool. The fact that there's a defibrillator in the rec center doesn't help the people in the pool. Anyway, we're talking about the audit that just came out. A couple of things that maybe next week you can give me some answers to this. If I look at page 8, I see our total liabilities for the city are now $327,521,000 as opposed to last year $256,265,000. That's almost $70 million more. I'm sure there's an explanation, but I don't know what it is. It also says in page 12, departmental income was less than the budgeted amount by $2 million due to lower anticipated police fees, beach charges, recreation fees, and sanitation revenue. I remember last year, Mr. Tagneet said that the beach charges were up by $1 million. Now we're finding out that we're $2 million short. I'd like an explanation of that. It says, as of, again on page 12, as of June 30th, 2018, the city government funds reported overall fund balances of $5,155,000, a decrease of $14,091,000 from the beginning fund balances of $19,247,000. Like an explanation of that too, please, if you don't mind. It says Moody's, in February 2018, Moody's Investor Service, and this is page 16, affirmed the city's credit rating is Baa1 with a stable outlook. In May 2018, Moody's Investor Service revised the outlook to negative. In February 2019, Moody's Investor Services downgraded the city's credit rating to Baa2 with a negative outlook. I think that's 2 steps above junk. And that, a lot of it had to do with not having a controller. I'd like to know what we're doing about that. It says also here on page 17, the adopted budget for the year beginning July 1st, 2018 included a $3.7 million increase in real property taxes. This change equates to a 10.25% increase, which exceeds the tax cap law. We knew it was exceeding the tax cap, but for some reason I thought it was only 8%. Now they're telling us it was 10%. So next week, well, we're having a meeting next week. You said next week?
April 16th, but I think the answers to those questions, Mr. Lester, are better addressed to the financial expert that will be here during the budget hearing today.
Okay.
So I think that's probably the best form to get those
It's
questions.
just when we're talking about bonding, this is a little scary. Okay, thanks.
Marsha Eisner? Good evening. I'm sorry. There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Marcia Isner on West Hudson Street. What I want to address has nothing to do with anything that's been said before. My concern is about our technology kind of invading the community. And I got a letter, started with, in fact, I got a letter a few days ago saying there was a new smart meter on my electric, my electric meter was going to be changed to a smart meter. And I have a daughter who has experienced, her health has really experienced some very negative effects from wireless technology. So I'm a little bit aware of that kind of stuff, and she encouraged me to do a little further research. And I did, and my husband and I went to see a film that was screened out in Elmwood a few days ago called Generation Zapped. If anybody has not heard of it, look it up, generationzapped.com. And it's really scary, the things we don't know and that we're not aware of. And people are really not told that you can opt out. There's a little note on the bottom. And I just want to, I'm talking about this for several reasons. I have a couple of questions, but I also just want people to be aware that they have an option. They need to learn the pros and the cons. Don't be conned. Learn the cons about what are the dangers of having this technology. It's not just on your home, but it affects the neighbors. So it's a community health issue, which is why I want to raise it. I don't know. My questions are three. One is this something that council's ever thought of? I don't know if the city has any control over stuff like this. And of informing the public to kind of look before it's installed on every house in the community. The second thing is about 5G. There were some people at this meeting from Huntington where it was kind of slipped in under the radar, and the community really was never publicized. It was a meeting, but unlike here where happily when there's stuff to be discussed, we have a meeting, we can attend things, we can, put input in. There was really nothing to do. Now they're fighting against it because there seem devastating things happening in their community because of it. So my second question is, has the council been approached at all through any proposals for small cell with transmitters in the community? And if it hasn't, if it is, will the community be invited to put their input in? Will it be informed? And then the third thing is, does the city have a telecom ordinance? I just quickly want to say, Generation Zapped we're arranging for it to be shown at the library and at the senior center soon. So it's really important if you just get informed. So
Thank you.
answer my questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to call up Commissioner Cummins, and maybe he can speak to these smart meters. Yeah, I know, but he deals with, or maybe it's Commissioner Miranda. I don't know if either one of you have dealt with PSC&G with the smart meters that they're going to start installing, or is it you that would be able to speak to it?
Really, it doesn't involve either one of our departments for the most part. I can speak to it only because on Saturday while I was at a soccer game, they showed up my house and put one in.
Okay.
I unbeknownst to me, until I got home and had a note on my front door. Obviously, what PSCG is looking to do is not really have meter readers anymore. I think in the long run, it's a cost-saving event for them, so they can remotely read the meters. More than that, I haven't done a lot of research into it. It is something they're looking to do. I know we've had some issues with National Grid on the gas side of things, looking to put in automated meters with shut-offs so they can shut people's gas down. But unfortunately, it's the way of the new world with technology.
Okay.
There is no definitive answer on.
And we don't have any small cells, right?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not sure. I don't think we do. Yeah, no, not that. Yeah, no, we don't have them. I don't know. Are you coming up, Commissioner? Yeah.
Just to elaborate on the National Grid, they are putting in and then mandated by the Public Service Commission to protect the gas system during a flood situation. They are putting in about 18 collectors, and then they'll be putting individual valves on people's meters that when there was a flood in an area or a tire, they can shut down the gas meters.
Right. We're talking about the radio
Right,
frequencies.
but that is done by Wi-Fi from the meters.
Oh, that's done by Wi-Fi also.
We really didn't have much of a choice. We did
Okay.
send in a letter on behalf of the city council
Right.
with our concerns and, of what the project was and things like people who have generators, who put generators in and he has to shut off. But basically, we were told, listen, it's mandated by the Public Service Commission, we're just kind of informing you. So as far as the PSC and GMIS, I can reach out to our municipal contact and get a little more information to bring back. But I got a similar letter at my house, so.
They're doing that everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vandermoor? I don't think we have any contract, any telecom contract. We do have, on the roof of this building, though, there is a cell site.
Hi again, I'm here on behalf of the Survey Foundation, it's a Long Island chapter, and we're here to thank you for considering and progressing an intentional balloon release ban that you've now put on the agenda for a hearing on the 16th. In my part of doing an educational campaign on this issue, I didn't realize that people didn't know that it was wrong. I equate it with littering, which, starting in the 70s and 80s, we all started talking about how wrong that was. But throwing balloons into the air is just as big as littering. And we will be continuing our part to get education out there. And we really thank you and commend you for doing your part to take care of our environment here in Long Beach. And we hope to see that East Hampton, as you know, is the only other town in Long Island who's doing this, or has done this, sorry, and you'll be the second. And we are excited to take this as a model to the town level, because obviously the balloons that are released in Atlantic Beach or Jones Beach are going to all end up in our state ocean. So again, thank you for spearheading this environmental initiative. Really appreciate it. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Eileen Hessian?
Eileen Hessian. The list of new hires that you have here, when there's a big raise, not a usual raise, but something big like $25,000, does that go on there? Do raises go on that piece of paper?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, okay, because otherwise. That $350 million in debt is very scary to listen to. I hear us every week borrowing more money, hiring more people, giving out raises, but you don't hear too much about cutting back on things. When Roy Lester came up earlier this evening, he asked you, did you have the answers for his questions from last meeting? And you said no. He had some really super questions tonight, and I hope that you don't say no to him next week. I hope that you answer those questions.
They are important. Also, I'm really here to talk about this politics during this campaign season. Chuck Schumer was here yesterday and met with some of you and talked about the flood insurance premiums going up. While he was there, he recognized Liz Treston in the crowd and acknowledged her. This was fitting, as Liz has long been a community activist. She chairs the Long Beach COA Communities Active in Disasters. She's active in Stars of Hope, UCP, and other organizations that help improve our community and our world. She has helped, and 7 years later continues to help people affected by Sandy. When her name was mentioned by the senator, Gordon Tepper leaned into Senator Schumer and said, Jim Mulvaney. It was very obvious in the video. So the senator acknowledged that Mr. Mulvaney was in the crowd. I don't know him. I never saw him during or after Sandy. I never heard his name mentioned regarding flood insurance or recovery efforts, so I don't know why Senator Schumer should have picked him out of a crowd at a flood insurance meeting. The only thing I know about him is that he's running for city council alongside Mr. Aramo and Ms. Diamond, which makes me think that Mr. Tepper was trying to get Mr. Mulvaney a little free publicity at an event of importance to Long Beach residents, especially those who suffered during Sandy. It was appropriate to single out Liz Treston at this flood insurance meeting, as she has done so much for the Sandy survivors. Mr. Mulvaney, on the other hand, seemed to be mentioned only as part of a political agenda. Campaigning for candidates should not go on during the workday by the people employed by our city and paid with our taxes. Please help Mr. Tepper to understand that. Thank you.
Pennsylvania. What are the responsibilities of the city treasurer? What are the criteria to fill that role? What does the city pay the treasurer annually? And who is the city treasurer? I'm very...
I was going to answer. The city treasurer is actually Appropriation.
City treasurer.
My time back on now?
Go ahead.
My time never stopped. Did you fix it?
Continue, Ms. McGinnis.
I am very disappointed that item 6 with the amendment was passed. Mr. Miranda stated that this was a routine practice. There is nothing routine about our financial situation. This item should have been tabled on principle alone, and this demonstrates that several council members continue to abdicate their fiscal responsibility. On July 1st, 2017, the general fund balance was $8.65 million. On June 30th, 2018, the general fund balance was $3.15 million. That's a decrease of $5.2 million in 1 year. I'd like to see a reconciliation of that, because that was a plug to meet that budget, and I'd like to see it in 2 weeks. At the end of January, Mr. Cagney said we were on budget for this fiscal year. I want to know if we're still on budget, and if we're not, are we going to be dipping into general fund balance, and by how much? Thank you.
Mindy Delper. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I have 3 things I wanted to discuss with you. The first thing I wanted to discuss is when we're talking about the food trucks. Last year there were palm trees by the food trucks. I was just curious who paid for the palm trees last year, and if there are going to be palm trees this year. I think it was a little ridiculous to have them. I think they weren't unsightly, And with our budget the way it is, I think there's no reason for us to have them. Who paid? I went through, city workers were planting them. Was it part of the truck people? Did they pay for it at all?
The city paid for it, but I've cut the palm trees this year.
I'm sorry?
The city paid last year, I've cut the palm trees out this year.
Okay, good. But it's more bad. And since Ms. Moore brought up that maybe the food trucks next year could bring something reusable, I'm thinking that since some of the residents do use the food trucks, maybe we could put out a campaign having the residents bring reusable plastics to use them, so at least the residents are using reusable plastics. I mean, I now am using, when I do takeout, I'm using my own takeout containers. When I go to restaurants now, it would be awesome to be able to implement that at the food trucks. Just something to do. And obviously people at the beach are not going to do so, not coming to the beach with it, but it would be an awesome campaign if the residents, if you are going to be using the food trucks, to bring your own reusable plastics. Just something. And I cannot, everyone's starting to think about this season. I would not be remiss to not bring up the movie mats. So I would like to see those on the agenda. Talking about them, where we're going to place them and everything. It is April. When I saw the restrooms being deleted off the agenda, but this is part of our season. It needs to be discussed, and the movie mats for the beach definitely need to be part of the agenda, and I'd like to see it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. James Kirkland?
Jim Kirkland, Long Beach, New York. As an aside, PSEG has white vans running around the city, and they're popping meters in and out. It takes them a few minutes to do it. They're fine, they go before you even know it. I came up here just to get a status update on what's going on with the iStar suit and the Haberman suit. I know the penalty one was denied, but I'm sure they're appealing. I was just wondering what was going on with either of those.
Sure. Well, with the iStar, there's two pieces to the iStar litigation. One is the zoning element, which you were involved in. They are appealing that. They filed a notice of appeal. With respect to the other half, which is iStar's lawsuit against us, that was the oral argument was adjourned to sometime mid-May, I believe. But there's no decision on our motion to dismiss. And now there's I should mention that at the beginning. We made a motion to dismiss that complaint, and the oral argument is scheduled for sometime in mid-May.
And as far as the Haberman penalty,
there was a damages inquest scheduled for March. The judge has adjourned that with no new date because it's contingent on the liability trial taking place with Seapoint Towers. So we are pegged to that, and we're on the tail end of it. That's been adjourned. There's what's called motions in limine all over the place in both cases. The judge has his work cut out for him, and there's been a delay as a result.
And I also saw that they were indicating they were looking to sell the property now and not develop it.
That was a rumor I heard yesterday for the first time. It's news today.
Oh, actually, I saw it in print.
Where did you see it?
It's been a while. Oh, it's not just recent, just a while ago. So
I just heard that yesterday.
Oh, good news takes a little bit of time to get around. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirkland. Committee's room.
Hey, Rona. I am happy that City filed its audit report on time and in accordance with federal law. I'm happy that our federal funds for our important buses, community, food, all these important aspects will not be in danger. So I'm happy that we actually followed the law for the first time in many years, as Mr. Agostisi pointed out. Now, before I start, I want to discuss Mr. McTierman's messing and with the good and welfare cards. I think that it's extremely inappropriate for our Director of Communications to be reading personal information, to be touching those cards, and many times people who disagree with the city's ideology and the current administration, somehow when he goes through them, those names end up in the bottom of the barrel. So I ask that you instruct Mr. McTiernan that the only person who should look for those, I don't think it's very funny. Oh yeah, my time zone. I think it's inappropriate for you to address my question, address me like that. I also think it's inappropriate of him going through the cards. I think Mr. Ramo, or if Mr. Ramo's not here, Ms. Diamond, those should be the only people looking through the cards, not a political appointee or a communications director. Now I also wanted to discuss the amended fund transfer resolution. I think it was wrong to twist my idea of increased transparency and only inform the public 60 days after the fiscal year. Again, it was coincidental that Ms. Diamond suggested the 60 days, which is coincidentally after the Democratic primary. And I would not be surprised if this report was delayed until after the general election. I think instead, it should be every month. We should inform, just as I said, just with the personnel reports. We should every month say, this funds transfer happened, this fund transfer happened, because this is how the $2.1 million of separation pay got moved around. This is how this is how the city has been able to raid our reserve funds. So this so-and-so, quote-unquote, like, basic practice is really a key to this shady corrupt administration. And I also want to touch on Mr. Miranda's point that this is standard practice for the 4 municipalities he worked in. I can bet the 4 municipalities he worked in are not the highest fiscally stressed in New York State. We cannot continue to have a culture of, this is the way it's always done. As I said at the last meeting, we need to self-assess and ask ourselves, is this the best way we can do things? This is one of the many problems we have, is we just think the way it's always been done. We need to look at new ideas, we need to question what we do. Now, with the remainder of my time, I want to discuss the audited financial statements, which, again, were a mess. We have, again, $177 million in the hole. I don't think that's very good. Thank you.
First of all, I want to address the cards. It seems reasonable to me that first come, first serve should be the way that the cards should be handled. There are many individuals who come before 7 o'clock. They've already signed in, therefore they should have the privilege of going first and being addressed. Cards should not be moved in any way to respect the time frame that many people have in the room. Number 2, in terms of the resolution, this resolution, I can only speak for the past 3 years. This resolution is always presented. This is not a new resolution. It's customary. It's presented before all of us on an annual basis. In terms of the amendment was not to address what should happen outside of this particular resolution. I'm not disagreeing in any way that on a monthly basis we should have information, and that information should be public. All residents should have access to that information, but the purpose of amending this particular resolution was to begin the step in terms of transparency and to make sure that the information, we have access to the information. That was the only purpose of this resolution. All right, so it was a good intention, now it's become something else. So I just want to be clear about it, was we needed to take a step. It's not saying that because we're taking this step that we can't have month-to-month information, because we still need that, okay? But thank you for coming forward.
Thank you. And I would call on Acting City Manager Harris DC to release the monthly reports, and I again repeat my calls to Mr. Ramo to direct Mr. McTiernan to not look at the cards and not to touch them. Thank you.
Next up is Nora Egan. While Ms. Egan comes up here, I would just say, on the bottom of the card it does say topics, and that's why the cards are filtered through. If there was 5 or 6 folks that wanted to speak about the intentional release of balloons, we would have grouped them together. And that's why Ryan does flip through them, just to keep the meeting somewhat structured. If there isn't anything that is specific, then we do leave them in the order that they are here.
The mine at the bottom, and I I know I was here before, so.
I think today I flipped them over upside down, so I think we're going backwards today.
Nori Egan, 340 Eastchester. So again, I have three things. Train station tonight, 6:15, 6:20. There was a big fight. The guy who owns the store was getting a little bit harassed. He also agrees as his employee does. There's no police presence there in the last couple of months. Is the personnel report missing some of the appointments, the new appointments? And then with regards to payout, I'm confused as to how we can go ahead with this. The method of calculation has not been determined yet. The state controller is still looking into it. If you are going to go ahead with it, I assume that you all have received the receipt and claims report for each of the individuals listed? Yes? No? No? So you're going to have to foil for them again? Okay. So I have Mr. Tappert from 2018. So did we pay him 2018 and now we're borrowing? Like he's included in this? And on his payout it's listed as $30,756.73. And on the sheet you have listed $34,373.10. I'm not sure what the discrepancy is. Again, with Mr. Tapper, he got one again early last April, and there's been no determination as to why he got it. Did he give it back? Because we weren't supposed to get one unless we separate. So before you can go move ahead with this, I think you really need to do your homework. You need to get these sheets. You need to know their sick pay, their vacation pay, and he's also listed as getting compensation time. My understanding is he's an exempt and he's not entitled to it. So I really think you need to go through these, maybe reach out to the state controller, get the audit updated sooner than during the summer, use our internal auditors, get the DA involved, and do your homework before we start borrowing again. Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Good evening, Mike Delore, Long Beach. When is the next time the council is going to meet on the budget? Do you have scheduled meetings for the month of April internally for yourselves?
Not scheduled yet, no. I would guess next week.
It's April 2nd. When will you be meeting as a council?
The budget is presented as on April.
I know, I understand when it's presented. But when will the where's Mr. Councilman Mendel today? Is he ill? Question is, how do you have a consensus putting together a budget?
The city manager puts together the budget.
Okay, Councilman Bendo, have you been in attendance to any budget discussion meetings this year? Councilwoman Moore, have you been at any?
Not this year.
We haven't had our meetings yet. We're waiting for the city manager to present us with the budget.
Okay, so you all, have you received monthly reports, operating reports, where you are budget actual to date? Councilman Bendo?
No.
Councilwoman Moore?
Not this year.
Okay. Well, I want to make a clarification. The $400,000 that you mentioned about borrowing, I think Mr. Gussler mentioned the total is $890,000. I think that the record has to be changed on this, and I'll tell you why. Assuming you're borrowing at 5%, and you're paying over 10 years, that's $40,000 per year in principal. A declining balance of interest in principal brings you about $90,000. So I think your $400,000 borrowing gives you $490,000 total cost at the end of the 10 years. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the next. $890,000 over 10 years to borrow $400,000. I'd like to be a banker. Mr. Healy, if you are still here. totally support your idea. Noise referral complaints. I know I brought this up maybe a year or two ago. It had to do with Mio Posto, and the city does not have any monitor to measure noise. There's meters involved with that. Understood. However, a resident makes a complaint, and in this case, they immediately turn down the volume. But it's a repetitive, ongoing, weekly, and I am not the resident. I hear from residents. I'll make it short and sweet. Requested a couple of months ago, when will the crosswalks in the center of town at least be painted? Do you have any idea if the crosswalks here?
After the acting city manager said earlier, the painting starts up after the potholes are taken care of.
I thought that's what you said. I just wanted to understand that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deloitte. Jay Gusler.
Mr. Deloitte, going back to your seat, during Brendan's presentation to the council, I did ask the acting city manager to address that particular issue in terms of trying to have some kind of presentation be made available here during a council meeting to speak to the noise situation and noise concern.
And just one other thing, for clarification on the bond you brought up. I think when the acting city manager said $49,000 annually, that was principal and interest both. So the total payback on the $400,000 borrow would be $490,000. So it's $90,000 in interest.
Okay.
Over the 10 years.
I heard a different, and I don't know if he said 890 or not, or that's what I heard. I could have been wrong. That's what I wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's right.
Good evening, Jay Gusler, Long Beach. Please do not interrupt me during my comment. I'd like to know, do we have a controller? And has Shari James come back to work for the city, either as a direct employee or as a consultant? The resolution appointing Mr. Agostisi on January 3rd, 2019 as acting city manager was amended on the floor to include a requirement that the city continue its search process for a permanent city manager. How is that search going, and what steps, if any, have we taken in furtherance of that search? As far as the item that you announced for publication today concerning the bonding for further separation payments, there's been no report yet from the city controller on the separation payouts, and we've been told that we can't expect one before the summer, if then. I'm wondering how the city management can contemplate borrowing for further separation payments when the state comptroller has not yet addressed the formulas used to calculate these payouts. President Aramo and the majority have rather publicly refused to get into the middle of the payout calculation controversy, deferring to the state comptroller, yet here the council is again being asked to start the borrowing process to the tune of $400,000 to bond further separation payments. I don't know how we can be giving out separation payments if we still have refused to look at the processes internally, and we do not have the comptroller's report to tell us what the correct amounts are going to be. We know there's problems with the payouts because the data that's already out there that we've all seen indicates that most people got paid in accordance with the Code of Ordinances and the provisions of the relevant provisions of the CSCA's agreement, but a handful did not. A handful of people got a lot more, to the tune of about $500,000 collectively. For instance, Jack Schneeman got $55,000 just for sick time. Like other exempt CSCA employees, he was only supposed to get 30% of his accrued sick time. That would have been $18,000. He was paid $73,000 plus for his sick time, as per the city's own records. That's unjustified. Another example, Mr. Agostisi himself got $75,190 for sick time, when 30% is only $31,510. That's a $43,600 overpayment. And yet Mr. Agostisi is going to guide this council on the disbursement of this $400,000 that he's trying to get me to borrow to make other payouts. Christy Hansen Hightower, also, 30% of her sick time would have been $9,044. She got $36,891. Jim Macaruba, 2 payouts, 2 retirements within 13 months of each other. Both times he got more than the 30%.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Thank you.
You get the idea?
I can do that.
You guys should be talking about a moratorium on borrowing for payouts or a moratorium on payouts.
Michael Graham.
I'd like to thank Ms. Moore. I would like to thank Rob. It's been 7 years that my job has been taken away. Defamation of character. If I did anything that I've been accused of, I'll be in prison right now. If the city was so afraid of me, why did they hire me back at a lower pay in a different position? I got sick at work. And I returned to work with a doctor's note to have my supervisor tell me that I'm too sick to work. I come upstairs, and the public works man also says to me when he comes out of his office, "You're no longer working here, you're too sick." So I left, pissed off. I've been coming in here for 7 years, not threatening nobody. I've been homeless for 5.5 years. I have an 8-inch scar right here on my knee for working for the city of Long Beach. I also had a heart attack. I have a battery keeping me alive because of the stress that the city put on me. I don't have a family. I'm homeless. I stay with my mother. The paycheck that you took away from me, it wasn't for me. I help my mother. I have kids, a 6 son. I have 6 grandkids. And to come back and to be fired because I'm working in the hot sun, I get sick, and then he tells me I'm too sick to work. And then he tells me, after he fires me, that I asked him for a note to write to disability. I asked him to write what he specifically said to me. And the people in his office heard it, but they won't say anything because they don't want to lose their job. I didn't need him to write a note for disability. I was already on disability. So why would I need? I was already a year on disability before the city hired me back part-time. And the other acting city manager, Mr. Tagley, do you know what he had the nerve to say to me? I'm busting his balls by coming up here. I'm a resident of the city of Long Beach. I have a bachelor's degree. I'm an Army vet. And this is disrespectful for the way I've been treated when I put my life on the line for this country. In 7 years, nobody would look into the allegations. Why is that? Why am I suffering and everybody else is gaining? You continue to employ people who've done bad in the community. I don't get that one neither. You give people raises. Here I am dying. Don't want to wake up as a man who lost my family, my kids, and everybody up here is too busy to sit down and explain to me, but I thank you, Rob, because you did listen, and I thank you again, Ms. Moore, but this nonsense has to stop. I'm sick, I can't eat, I had teeth, I don't have teeth. Why are y'all punishing me? It's like I've been incarcerated for something I didn't do. The definition of my character sticks with me. I can't get no high-paying job. And there's nobody explaining anything. I'm a human being, I have feelings, I have a family, and thank you guys for listening. But when this time we come around the vote and I open the door, I'm not gonna be nice this time, because each one of y'all have knocked at my door. But you never sat down to hear what I had to say, or you wasn't concerned about me and my family. And I find that very disrespectful. I haven't threatened anybody. Because if I had, I'm labeled as a bad guy, hard-headed, I was always on a basketball team. I joined the military. I'm well respected.
Thank you, Mr. Graham.
Thank you for listening.
Mr. King.
West Walnut Street. Good evening. I've come to speak to you today about a community development block grant. I understand that in your last budget,
received $150,000 to be used for micro loans. No loans were made. I want to know what happened to the money.
I don't think we received that money. That's through the county. If you want to finish your question, and then I'll have the Director of Community Development talk about the micro loans.
Okay, well, that was my question, but I have a statement to make. I was the first person who signed up here.
Okay.
I am 73 years old. I'm not going to sit waiting again. Now, what we used to do back in the day, had a yellow pad here. As you came in, you signed the yellow pad. When the meeting began, somebody picked up the yellow pad, brought it up to the chairman, and he read the names off of the yellow pad in the order in which the people had come. You were not required to say your phone number. You were not required to give your email address. You were not required to even say what you wanted to speak about. All you had to do was be a resident of Long Beach and sign that pad. I would like to suggest that you go back to that practice.
None of the information is required. It just helps for follow-up, and it helps for, as I spoke earlier, for coordinating if lots of folks want to speak about the same item. That's all it's for.
Well, the coordination didn't go very well.
Well, because everything was different tonight. It wasn't like a grouping of folks speaking
None
on
of
the
you
same topic.
understand. Coordination.
You don't even have to be a resident, by the way. Anyone can speak.
The issue is the coordination. The issue is you are a public body elected by the people who sit here this evening. Those of us who care enough to get here early or on time and sign up for good and welfare should be called first. And all you need is a yellow pad. If you want to get in touch with me later, ask me what's my address, what's my phone number. But I really resent this. I found it very disrespectful, and especially when it was pointed out to you that this was the case, you just continued doing it. You said, oh, I flipped over the cards, I guess that's why.
By flipping them upside down, then whatever's on the bottom would theoretically be the person that was here first. That's why I flipped them over.
So you flipped them over, so now when you realize that what happened was you flipped them over, I guess you got to start reading from the other end.
No. I flipped them over. They're still upside down, so theoretically, whoever I called first would have been first, so I don't know. You follow me? I flipped them upside down, so then the top one would be who was here first. So they didn't sort it.
And so I would like to suggest that
I appreciate that.
again, use these sheets, do not again sort them. We just have you to sign the yellow pad. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Community Development Director to speak about the microloans from the county.
So there was $130,000 put into the 43rd year of the CDBG program. Working with Councilwoman Moore, who actually worked with Margaret to actually put that line in, we found out that the stipulations to actually do those loans would be a hard and large encumbrance on the loans, on the people who we would actually give out the loans to. They would need to create a certain number of jobs for a certain amount of money that's loaned out, and the reporting requirements that we put on them would be too great. Also, the results that they would need to show would be too great to actually do the loans. We would also need to give large amounts. So if we wouldn't really be able to give like $1,000 or $5,000 loan, we'd have to do something around $50,000 just to make the loan viable, so that's the kind of cash to give out the loan. So we decided to actually transfer that program. And then Ms. Moore and I were going to work on something else, some type of business incubator, or I believe we were talking about a kitchen incubator to do, which would instead help some of the business owners.
So the $130,000 is still there. It hasn't been used for something else.
It hasn't been used for anything else. It was transferred to do affordable housing acquisition, which is money that we're going to accumulate over a few years to buy property and turn it into affordable housing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Ms. Mary Savage.
Mary Savage, Long Beach. I have a suggestion that when you know that you're going to have retirees at the end of the year, I think you need to start budgeting into that. My husband worked for the county and he had to put his paperwork in, and they kind of knew, you know, X amount of people will need it and what they needed, and I think that's part of the shortcomings. Number two, I find it very rude that some people sit here and laugh at the people that come up here to talk. I'm not going to name names, Ms. Stacy, but they are, I'm sitting back here and I'm watching all evening. It's rude. These people pay their salary. And I've been very polite and very quiet, but I am getting really pissed at the way they make fun of the people. They have no right to do that. First of all, some of us are old enough to be their parents, and it's wrong. That's what's wrong today. Nobody respects age, knowledge, or manners. It's wrong. And I watch it week after week. Thank you.
That's our meeting for this evening. Thank you for coming, and please stay home safe.